This is your 10-minute countdown. 10 minutes, we'll be opening. If you need the restroom, outside to the left. Again, we'll be opening in 10 minutes.
Hello, everyone. We are live at the ASRA Spring 2022 meeting in Las Vegas, Nevada at the Caesars Palace Hotel. This is our first full day of the meeting. We're about to open the exhibit hall. I think they have the 5-minute countdown, so you're going to see a rush of people starting to come in behind me as they're coming to get their food and drinks and see all the amazing exhibitors and what they're offering here. I have a slew of people that are planning to come and chat with me and talk about the meeting and what their experience was like today. We've got people from all over the United States, but also all over the world. We have people coming from England, from Canada, I think some from South America and many other places. So it's exciting to see all these people and learn from them and really experience this meeting. I think that for those of you who are here, I think you will share that opinion. For those of you who are not, I hope you're keeping up with some of this on social media at hashtag ASRAspring22. You can see a lot of flurry of activity during the sessions, screenshots of the slides, comments from people in the audience, and really spectacular speakers talking about topics that are important to us. So I'll start with a recap as we're waiting for some of the other people to come here and chat with me. Becky Johnson is the chair of this meeting. And she has put in 3 incredibly hard years of work putting this meeting together in the middle of a pandemic with a lot of uncertainty about what kind of meeting this would actually turn out. Planning for this meeting was complex, given that we didn't know where the COVID pandemic would be, what the regulations at the Caesars Palace in Las Vegas would be, how many people would be able to travel here. And so, but we've turned out a spectacular meeting. So I'm so excited to have everybody here. We're going to introduce some of our folks here. And so there's another microphone here. Jenny, Welcome,
guys.
Kelly. Welcome.
Hello.
So we're already live. We're already on. And let me make sure the comment stream's on. So in case anybody wants to leave a comment, if you guys are watching out there and you want to put a little comment in your stream that you're watching, feel free to do so. We'll try to answer them or at least address them. Welcome. It's so
Yes,
great to
you
see you
too.
guys.
Yes.
Wonderful to be here. Wonderful to be around all these people and listen to this stuff. We love it, obviously. That's why we come to all these meetings. How have you guys been?
Been alive and kicking, I guess, just trying to figure out how life is going to be, maybe post-pandemic, maybe, all the other things. And then, just trying to...
I'm finally a grown-up doctor.
Yes.
Oh,
I'm an attending now.
Yeah,
Finally
for those of
finished
you guys who have
training.
been watching for a while, Kelly was a little baby when she started,
Yes.
a little tiny youngling, and somehow she's grown up into a big bad doctor.
Yeah.
Um,
So attending life is hard. It's 5 months in, but it's very exciting, and I get to do regional and APS and OR and kind of learn the ropes. So
That's fantastic. And I'm curious, as a new attending, you've been coming to this meeting for years. I think, what is this, 5th or 6th year now?
I
Something
am
like that?
10 years a member.
Are you 10 years?
I know.
Holy cow.
Seriously.
That's almost as long as me. But, how do you see the content differently now as an attending? And, at the sessions today, I remember when I was a young attending, like everything was like a to-do list in my brain of what I needed to take back. What kind of struck you as something you want to take back during these sessions?
We were actually discussing this today. We really enjoyed that practice session of like best practices and the different ways to approach things. I think what's interesting is because I've been in ASRA for so long, I recognize the people up there. I kind of know where they came from and what they're presenting on, and that means a lot more to me. So it's also like I can reach out to them. Hey, this is a person that knows about this. I think for me, for our shoulder surgeons, still are obsessed with interscaling. And what we would love to do is offer some other things for some of our patients. And I thought that was really interesting talk today about the different, all the different blocks you can do and how they really rank.
Yeah, Dr. Ayong was talking about, it was, in essence, a discussion about how to avoid the phrenic nerve.
Right.
And have diaphragm sparing effects for a nerve block related to shoulder surgery. But actually, there's a lot of other opportunities in his talk about different approaches, targeted approaches. Again, aiming towards that sniper effect that we're always wanting to do with a regional anesthetic, as opposed to a shotgun approach to the whole body or the whole arm, even in this situation. And I think the level of detail that he described, it's something I've seen all the time, but didn't fully appreciate the nuance that he was showing in the screen.
Right. And I found that it was just so easy to follow. And as he discussed, the literature has not always been straightforward on this. So knowing when you need to do a primary block, which one can you rely on, which ones can. Are the jury's out yet, and which ones will get you there with the analgesia, but not necessarily primary
surgical
block.
anesthesia.
Surgical anesthesia.
So if you guys are wondering what in the world we're talking about, so if you look on my Twitter feed, I have several screenshots of some of the material that Dr. Ayong presented, and so you can get a sampling of some of those blocks and some of the areas that he's talking. Some of that detail he's talking about the different branches of the upper trunk and how to interpret the anatomy on ultrasound and then what you can do with that information. I was amused by Dr. Karim El-Baghdadi talking about nomenclature, because that's his pet project right now. And saying that, the nomenclature was a little loose on his Dr. Ayong's slides, and we got to rein some of that in before it gets out of control again. So, Jenny, what do you think you were going to take back? I mean, you've been doing this for a lot longer.
Yeah.
You've obviously implemented a lot of your practice. You've worked for a long time to streamline workflows and techniques and stuff, but I always find there's always something.
There is.
So give me an example of something that you saw.
I think one of the big things is like we've kind of stagnated in our practices. We've done a lot to bring everybody up to speed, but then you sort of reach a kind of point of, okay, I'm comfortable. Now what? And trying to push past that now what for especially those in the practice, because we don't really have...
All right, everyone, the exhibit hall is now open. Have a great conference.
You
Thank
guys,
you all again.
Yay!
You'll see a lot more people behind us pretty soon.
Yes.
So, and a little bit louder, so hopefully you can hear us. We'll keep the mics close.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So a lot of our group does regional, and it's not really specific to any particular individuals, despite having about 8 individuals who are fellowship trained in regional anesthesia. And so trying to advance their interest and actually peak that to educate them. Now that we are able to do more workshops and everything in person again, rather than just kind of like, here's a video, try it out.
Right.
I'm really excited, especially from a couple of the lectures today, to be able to bring back some new and fresh information in a way that is digestible. And I think that may bring some excitement and then kind of push past that comfort level. Because I think we've gotten that way a lot with the pandemic. We're just like, okay, we're going to survive. And now we've got to come back to trying to pick up the slack again and really starting to push ourselves for, more and better patient care.
So, this is true for everybody. It happens regardless of the pandemic. You get to a place where you fought to get to success, and then you're like, I've hit success, and so let's maintain.
Yep.
And as with most things, maintaining often means going behind. It's losing ground to a certain degree. So, as a question to either of you, when you see new stuff here, new blocks, new techniques, do you see that as, okay, I've learned a new technique, let me figure out where I can apply it? Or do you go to your institution and say, oh, I see this problem, I learned about this technique, I think it would fit this? Where do you start? Do you start with the technique or do you start with the problem? Especially when you're coming from a place here where we're talking so much about technique.
Right.
Bring that closer to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
think
louder.
for us in a more private practice environment, a lot of times it is there's lots of problems and lots of techniques to solve the problem. However, trying to find that niche to fit can be sort of that sweet spot. So it's a combination of the two. And you may be an evening shift and you go, oh my gosh, this patient came up. I would really like to try this new technique because I think it'll help them get home faster or will reduce the anesthetic so they have a shorter PACU stay, better analgesia, yada, yada. And then you try it that way. And then you can find ways to incorporate the technique because the problem's always going to be there, but It's really the implementation of the technique to be able to. So it isn't really one
both.
or the other. Yeah. Yeah.
What about in academics? I mean, private practice
Sure.
has a different energy.
So I will say, it does feel different as an attending, which is still very new. As a trainee, I would be like, go back to my academic.
You haven't everything figured out yet?
I do not.
No,
I do
okay.
not.
Give it one more month.
I need at least 10 more years.
Oh, 10 more years.
But no, I think before I used to come back and be like, hey, there's this great idea and we can totally do it and let's do it. And everyone would be like, oh, yeah. But now as a attending where we're kind of pushing the edge of like, okay, for this patient, I'd rather do this. And I've started to see this with my colleagues as I've been going through training that you can really start pushing that front forward as an individual in a small group and kind of start teaching other people around you. So for me, it's more, I've seen problems. I've seen patients in this scenario with shoulder surgery that are not a good candidate. And now we have more tools and we can bring those to our colleagues. And I think there's a bit more open arms to, it doesn't matter if it takes longer. It doesn't always matter if we've done these regularly before, if we start showing that we can be, have good outcomes and still be efficient. I think that for me, that's my hope. I'm going to be doing some superior trunk blocks in the future.
Yeah, I often many of these new service lines, new techniques require a champion team. Hopefully not a champion person. Champion person, as Jenny has experienced in her past, is often a lot of burden for one person. But you want to share some of that burden with at least a few people. But you also probably don't want 15 people doing the new thing all at once because the quality is not good. So finding that balance between one person and 10 or 15 people can be tricky. And but it sounds like what I'm hearing you say is that the problems are always swirling around in your mind, and then the technique registers when you see it. Right. You go on stage, you're like, aha, that's the thing that'll fix that problem that's been gnawing at me for months, years, or however long.
Right. And being in an academic institution, I feel like we're always looking for what should we study, what can we improve. And not that you don't do that in private practice, but you don't have as much wiggle room to implement new things and do these trial periods. And a lot of our colleagues, not just anesthesiologists, but surgeons, are a little more open to us being like, this is the front line now. that keeps moving forward.
Some of our
we have to
colleagues.
follow. Yes, not every colleague.
Not every colleague. Hey, Carlos.
Carlos.
Welcome.
Hello.
How are you? It's Carlos Pino. How are you? Carlos,
Good.
fellow board member,
Yes.
coming to
So,
us from
we're live.
California. Carlos, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Excited to be here?
Yeah, I'm very excited to be here. It's fun.
So
Good
I've,
place.
I've been asking Jenny and Kelly, coming back after a couple of years, and you're a chronic pain physician. This is not necessarily your meeting, but there's been a lot of conversation about pain and understanding pain better and approaching that obviously from an acute pain physician's point of view, but there's been conversations about chronic pain as well. Has anything jumped out to you that like you see a conversation shift?
Well, are you guys okay with me taking the
Yeah,
mask
that's
off?
fine. Thank you.
So no, you're absolutely right. Sorry, I'm also.
I'm going to have you keep your mic close just because
Yeah.
it picks up background noise.
Yeah. So
Otherwise.
no, you're absolutely right. I mean, this is all a continuum, right? The continuum of pain, and I think ASRA is really taking that step.
ASRA Pain Medicine,
ASRA
right?
Pain Medicine,
ASRA
right?
Pain
So we should
Medicine
do.
rebranded
That's right.
to and I think it's
I think that's
important for
important,
people to
right.
know. So we've always been in our title we've had everything there,
Yeah,
but it's
right.
been sort of a mixed message: regional anesthesia, acute pain, chronic pain, and
Perioperative medicine.
perioperative medicine. There's a lot under this umbrella, and so the rebranding effort at ASRA to call it ASRA Pain Medicine was not to diminish regional anesthesia and acute pain, but rather to elevate the entire spectrum of pain control and pain management from preoperative care
Right.
through intraoperative or trauma care to postoperative and outpatient care. And that whole spectrum and more, our society speaks to that
Yeah.
in many levels: research, clinical, advocacy, lots of levels. And so the rebranding effort of the organization, and it's hard for us to say, we've been calling it ASRA for a long time, but really it's ASRA Pain Medicine.
And it's been that way. We just didn't call it.
We didn't call it
like
that, yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
ASRA PM. There was that at some point, but no, I think you're absolutely right. And I think the program this year is very much trying to highlight that continuum of pain from pre-op all the way to chronic pain. So no, I think this meeting has been great. I think the topics are fabulous. I did some posters today with some very young researchers, great posters. I mean, in basic science. I mean, in very top-notch clinical area. So I'm very, very, very happy and very surprised with the level. So.
I think people have been holding in some research for a few years now, and like all of a sudden it's coming out, and starting to get out into the sphere again. So that's good.
Yeah, no, it's very, very good to see, and it's great to see everybody in person.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And we've had, for those that you might not know, and there's going to be people out there who are in charge of other meetings,
yeah,
right? Other
Absolutely.
societies, and there's always this concern that do people want to come back to live meetings? Virtual meetings were all the rage. Can we come back to live meetings? And clearly we do. Hey, this is Brian Seitz. Brian, so we're live. So Brian's the editor-in-chief of Regional Anesthesia Pain Medicine. He's also, inspiration for many of us for a lot of work he's done over the years.
Thanks, Raj.
We were talking about ASRA Pain Medicine. Thank you, guys. Go enjoy. Here, scoot over. We can get you centered here a little bit. So, but you've been doing a lot with the journal. We were talking about the rebranding for ASRA Pain Medicine, trying to make sure we encompass the entire spectrum of pain. Obviously, the journal represents the forefront, the face of what we really mean by that. And what are you guys doing at the editorial level to make sure we're bringing in the science, the clinical, the editorial content that spans that entire spectrum?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, we want to, we're trying to recruit the best research we can. We're trying to network and really work with our full community, all the skill sets out there to get papers coming our way. We know we have a lot of competition, but that's why we have a really, really quick and informative review process. So even if, and we talked about this today actually at the board meeting, even if you get a negative response, you're going to get a lot of information with your review, so that with your paper, so that when you do submit somewhere else, you'll be able to make it even better and more attractive for another journal. So I think it's fast service. It's supporting our researchers and our authors with good information about the quality of their paper and areas for improvement. And we have a mission. And the mission is to get the best research possible.
And your turnaround time is very quick too. That's very, very great. It's like 10 days, right?
Yep. So it's on average, it can be a little bit more, it can be less, and about an average, yeah. So it's really quick, and that's actually a real tribute, by the way, to all of our peer reviewers, our volunteers who believe in the mission, that they're willing to devote their time and their expertise to get these papers reviewed pretty quickly.
Right, because these are all volunteers that do this.
That's right. That's right.
So I want to point out a couple of things that we've talked about at our board meetings that I think are really important for the audience to know about. Obviously, you're soliciting and encouraging people to submit their manuscripts, their work. And if you have questions or concerns, Dr. Seitz is probably one of the most approachable editors-in-chief you'll ever find. So he would he welcomes questions and inquisitions about what's appropriate or not. But what I really wanted to emphasize is something you told us is, one, there's always room for more editors. There's more associate editors, people to review. So we're looking for applications of people that have expertise and interest in this area. Sometimes people think this is a closed box. It's not. There is an open application process for these roles.
Right.
And the more we get the community involved, the better the quality of the journal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really appreciate the compliments. And just before I actually get answer that specifically or comment on that, I do want to say that I am totally willing to work with people offline before you even submit. So if you have an idea you want to pitch to me, by the way, this is random. I didn't even know I was going to come here. So I'm just,
that's how I do things.
I hope I look okay.
That's okay.
So feel free to email me, and I can work with you with a Word document, and we can go through it. And then if you do submit it and it needs some work, we can do that on a personal level as well. We don't just kind of leave you out to be on your own. So I hope that encourages some people to go our way because we're providing that service. But yeah, so in terms of the editorial board, we really, really believe in a meritocracy. So the great example of that is that we had a college student review one of our papers who had a background in computer programming and statistics because that was their major. And they did an amazing job with some technical aspects of one of the studies we submitted. So I'll tap any talent, and so you can become a reviewer by signing up within Scholar One, and there's actually information on our website how to do that. And once you're in the system, then we can start assigning reviews to you, and that's a good way to work your way into the editorial board as you do more reviews for us. We get to see what your skill sets are.
And tell a little bit more, elaborate a little bit more on this mentorship thing that it's your sort of personal pet project.
Yeah, so we decided that there were a lot of residents, medical students that might be interested in going into anesthesiology, and even junior faculty members who weren't really sure how to do reviews and help, but they have some content expertise and they want to learn and grow. So we've created a system within Scholar One where we can flag people as what we call junior reviewers. Guest reviewers, and then what happens is we'll assign you a paper to review. We'll give you some basic instructions of how to go through that, and then when it's all done, I'll then meet with you virtually and go over the review and give suggestions about how to make the reviews more impactful for the future, and we get to kind of work together on that level.
Yeah, I think that bringing people up through the ranks, people don't know often how to just like all of a sudden jump into working with a journal or contributing to a journal. You've really done a great job of creating tiers of opportunity for people at different experience levels to get mentored and build their experience that hopefully make a name and credibility from that meritocracy you're talking about.
Absolutely.
and then represent themselves well and grow with the organization.
Exactly.
And we honestly want that. We're
And
looking for people like that.
That's true.
So
true.
when people are saying, "What can I do to get involved?"
Right.
This is what you can do to get involved.
And what's really cool about it is you really do have influence, and I think people really do enjoy that your opinions matter, and we factor them in. And we will sometimes go one way or the other based on one person's review that's really, really influential, and you get to learn from other members of the community and how they interpret papers too. So one of the most interesting parts about volunteering your time is when you get the decision letter on the paper that you reviewed, you'll see what other people wrote, and you can say, "Oh wow, I missed that," or "That's a really good point," or "Wow, they missed that, and I found that," and that's kind of cool. So that's like a little carrot because we know everyone's so busy.
Well, I know as somebody who tries to publish papers that I'm constantly learning how to do it better. And just reading the manuscripts raw, I mean, not raw, they're polished, but before they're published, I feel like I have a secret opportunity to learn about what a good art manuscript as it presents itself on the first round looks like, and what one that isn't presenting itself well and looks at, and so that I don't make the same mistakes. And as somebody who tries to be an academic physician and publish, I don't think there's anything better than being a reviewer to do better at your own writing.
Oh yeah, it's the same as true for me.
And study design.
Yeah, absolutely. And you actually learn what the fatal flaws often are, and then the things that get people excited. And so one of the things we're going to talk about on the Saturday lecture, the wrap-up session, is how to get published. And we're going to, I hope people can attend, but basically some of the concepts are that you really want to understand what clinical relevance really means. And your research question, and I think someone made I think it was Jens Borgelum made the comment that you can't turn a bad research question into a good research project, right? So in other words, if the question starting out really isn't interesting, you're going to struggle for the whole thing. So there's like really important kind of principles about what topic you're actually going to work on. So we're going to go through some of that if you have a chance to come to the getting published session on Saturday.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic, Ryan. I think you guys are doing a remarkable job with the journal. It is the face of the organization in a lot of ways. It's the face of the science for the organization. And I hope the journal keeps growing and getting better and becomes that platform for our community.
Thank you. And we should also thank, Raj for his fantastic social media editor role. It has helped kind of explode our footprint. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind.
Okay.
Thanks, Brian.
All right.
So come on in. So we are live online right now, William.
Oh, that's great.
Bridget, come on. And so we're just talking online about the meeting, what our experiences are. You can put it on your lapel, or you can hold it if it's easier.
Mm-hmm.
I only got 2 mics, so we'll kind of pass it around.
Here,
Yeah.
yes.
So I'm just kind of reviewing with people what the meeting's been like. This is our first day.
Yep.
Big meeting, back in person. We kind of missed each other for a while.
Yeah. Actually, I didn't get to say hi to you
I
yet.
know, proper highs. Yes. I was sitting next
Are
to you on the
green?
next
Yeah,
table.
you're green.
I'm a green
Green.
dot.
Yeah, hug
So,
yours.
Yeah, I like to
Huggers.
hug though. So
You need green dot.
I do. I need a
So
green dot.
so it's interesting that William walked up here. So one of the things that ASRA Pain Medicine has now is this mentor match program, and so William, I just found out 2 days ago, is matched to me. So I get to be his mentor,
He just
and
said he's coming to talk to
I
his
apologize
mentor.
for that in advance if that doesn't turn out so good for you. But
I was pretty disappointed when
I know,
I
that's
learned,
fair.
and I was like, well,
That's fair.
this is just how it's going to go.
I don't have much to offer. I got a couple of note sheets.
Yeah,
That's about it. But as somebody junior in the organization, what do you see at this meeting that gets you invigorated? What do you see that makes you kind of say, aha, I need to take this back to where I'm going and where I'm doing in my work on a regular basis?
So I'll answer
And
that.
I'm going to give you the same question here.
I'll answer that a couple of ways, but it's really something that Bridget said earlier, which was we come here, and the reason you're invested in ASRA is the people, right?
Yeah.
And so it's stuff like this where you're like actually interacting, and like it's such an accessible meeting, right?
Yeah.
Like you're like a big deal, like you're on Twitter a ton.
I'm not-
and you're totally accessible, and that's how this meeting comes across. With that, but to answer your question more directly, earlier today there was some talk about it was Nabil that was talking about some like hip pathways,
Yeah.
and that to me was one of the more helpful things that I was like, okay, this
Yeah,
is
so the conversation was about the spinal versus general anesthesia for hip fractures.
Mhm.
And the recent REGAIN study that was published in the New England Journal of Medicine that showed no difference in that study population for their outcome of 60-day mortality. They didn't show any difference between the two groups getting spinal or general.
right.
And there was a lot of discourse about that and whether people believed it or not, whether it was designed well or not. But based on the outcomes they predefined in their study, that's what they found, no difference. But his point was, in a well-protocolized system, and this is not discongruent with the paper that they published, is that in a well-protocolized system with organization from top down and specific pathways for certain subsets of patients, you can probably push that difference to be meaningful. And that's not inconsistent with the findings that a routine broad pragmatic use of spinal is probably not automatically effective.
Yeah.
It does take a little bit more. So
Well, we should probably talk to the live folks because the great Stephen Haskins has just shown up.
yeah. We're
Yeah.
getting to Steve. I want Bridget to finish her comment though about
I'm gonna have to pay so many people.
This is Bridget's
I
turn.
just
It's
said
not.
that
It's
as a
not your
joke. If
moment.
You say nice things about me, I'll pay you something.
It's going to be out of money. Yes.
look. I'm trying to keep this in order here. Give me a second.
Trying to be organized here at ASRA. Yeah.
So Bridget, I mean, like again, I saw a lot of stuff that struck me today. What do you think jumped out?
So
at you?
I saw a lot of great stuff. One thing that I'll say from not in the main meeting, but I went to one of the PBLDs today with Nadia Hernandez, talking about starting up a rib fracture protocol at her institution, and that was really cool. And I learned a lot. It's something we don't have protocols really at our institution, and it's something a lot of folks have been trying to get going. And so it was great to hear her experience, learn from her expertise in that, and just looking around that room is so cool to see. Like, that's what ASRA is about, right? You can come here, have lunch with one of the internationally recognized experts in the field of regional and acute pain, and learn, literally get to have lunch with them and learn from them and learn new things. And, my PBLD was awesome, but just for me, like, kind of taking a look around that room, I was like, I could have gone to any one of these 16 tables and I would have learned a ton. So,
Well, let's talk a little bit about the meeting. So, Steve Haskins from HSS, you have a special role at this meeting, right? So you get to kind of look at the meeting and plan your meeting.
Yes.
Steve is the program chair, the chair for 2023, ASRA Spring 23. That will be in Hollywood, Florida, at the Diplomat Hotel. I was just there not that long ago in January. It's a beautiful hotel, beautiful beach. Excited to be going there. Each meeting has its own flavor, its own theme, its own sort of energy about it. You've been thinking about this meeting for a couple of years now. You're getting to see what Becky has put together. Tell me what you think about where the society is moving and how you want to express that during the meeting that you're having.
Well, I feel incredibly fortunate to have the opportunity to be in a position where I can influence, what happens at one of these meetings, because I think, our society is one of those societies that really likes to be at the forefront when it comes to education, when it comes to engaging with people who are not necessarily the straightforward regional anesthesiologists and pain medicine specialists, but other specialties, and even not just within anesthesia, but also within other fields. We see Dr. Manson here, who's a previous emergency medicine physician, who will be talking about potentially
Recovering.
The role exactly
Recovering.
the role that regional anesthesia and pain medicine can play in different clinical settings, including the emergency room. And so I've always been a advocate for diversity of thought and experience in ASRA, as someone who helped bring point of care ultrasound to the society through the point of care ultrasound special interest group, through the perioperative point of care ultrasound course that we hold. And so I saw this as an opportunity to take that sort of enthusiasm for diversity in thought and experience and really sort of take it to the next level, and not just have it be about something that we in ASRA have been very vocal advocates about, which is gender diversity and the national conversation surrounding racial and ethnic diversity. But now we have an opportunity to talk about regional in the sense of practicing either in urban or rural settings, or in space, or in military settings, or what it means to practice regional over the course of a career. To not, as you age, not let these skills sunset on you. And also one of the things that I think is particularly exciting is that we will be celebrating our 100-year anniversary next year, because Gaston Labat helped create the first version of the American Society of Regional Anesthesia in 1923, after he he published his prominent book on regional anesthesia techniques, and so next year is going to be our 100-year celebration.
Very cool.
Which is an opportunity for us to reflect on a past century of innovation that the society has had, and we can look forward to a future of inclusivity, and that's going to be the theme is ASRA Centennial, a century of innovation and a future of inclusivity, and we by inclusivity I've alluded to some of the topics, but also we want to speak to other societies. I think there's an opportunity for us to provide training and education for our pediatric colleagues who are seeing an uptick in the need for regional anesthesia because of the opioid epidemic, and because of the fact that there really is this increasing interest and demand in regional anesthesia in the pediatric population, to our obstetric colleagues, who obviously there's a lot of overlap in our practice.
Cardiac.
And cardiac, because we're seeing now with the RACER protocols and the interest in fast tracking cardiac patients, that regional anesthesia is sort of seeping into all these different subspecialties, and we really should be inviting them to join us in this conversation. I can see that I'm rambling on here, but please.
It's good.
We had-
It's incredible enthusiasm. So
You give Stephen Haskins a year to think about something. He's got great things to
two,
say.
2 years. 2 years we've been thinking about this.
We also had a participant at the POCUS SIG who's a critical care doc.
Yeah.
Who does a lot of ICU, regional and ICU. And he said that was his thing. And so I think I love that vision of being more inclusive and tapping into other subspecialties as well, because it regional is involved in all of that as well.
Well, I think that the opposite of inclusive is exclusive, right? And so there has been certain specialties in medicine that try to exclude people from their specialty of technique as a way of protecting their vested interests. And I think that the philosophy that this organization had, that you're expressing at your meeting, is actually that our reputation as leaders in this field grows by being inclusive rather than exclusive. And by sharing this information, these skills with a broader group of people really elevates the organization, elevates the people, and not diminishes it. And I think that's representative of what you're trying to achieve at your meeting.
And to that point, I'll say I love getting to see old friends like you guys, but some of my favorite people to meet at ASRA meetings are med students. And I think it's so awesome. There's a med student here that I met at the ASA meeting, and I was like, she came to one of the regional talks, and I was chatting with her afterwards, and she's like, oh yeah, I think this is cool. And I'm like, you got to come to ASRA. Like, if you think this is like an appetizer, if you think this is cool, like I said, if you come to ASRA, but
Is that Shauna?
keep in mind, you'll be hooked.
You talking about Shauna?
No, not Shauna.
Oh, there's several of
There's
them.
several. Yeah. But I was like, I got to tell you though, if you come to the ASRA spring meeting,
You'll get hooked.
you're going to get hooked.
You'll
so
get
just
hooked.
be prepared.
No going back.
Right.
Yeah. And
I came in 2007. I'm still here.
Yeah.
So still ticking along with this. So this is the one meeting I go to every year, and except for 2020, actually in
You're gonna have
2020.
to now, though.
No, I know, but in 2020, there was no meeting, right?
Yeah.
I kind of made my own meeting at the last minute. We
Yeah,
did
you
an
did.
online abstract, moderated
Yes,
abstract
that was
review.
awesome.
That's how much of withdrawal I was going through, not coming to the meeting. I had to make my own at the last minute just because I was like desperate to talk to these people. I was like, this is the time. This is the time that I'm supposed to talk to them. So I'm going to do it myself.
Yeah.
So
That was great. I think the ability to still promote the academic
Yeah. So
efforts that are put forth by everyone who comes to this meeting. I mean, the abstracts are such a huge part of why this meeting is so successful, because it speaks to all the clinician scientists or emerging clinician scientists out there that just care so much about the work that we're doing and how we can impact patients' experience in the perioperative setting. So thank you for doing that, because it allowed my quadratus lumborum hip arthroscopy abstract to be talked about in a public setting, because
there's a lot of work. A lot of work goes into that. It should be shared.
Yeah.
Hey, just to remind people, I know we're only in day one of this meeting, and we're already talking about your meeting, but those dates come quickly,
They
right?
do.
The deadline for abstract submissions for the spring meeting next year are in December often, or early January. And so people need to be starting projects now if they haven't already gotten them underway to be ready for that. And I'll tell you what, there's a lot of people that are going to be submitting abstracts to your meeting, and we encourage you guys to do that. And you're going to be hearing from Steve reminding you to submit your abstracts. And if you do, we respect that. You know, the organization has people present on the podium. They're abstracts. We have them in the hallways. We have moderated sessions. We have e-poster sessions that have active, intentional faculty come and go talk to them, even during the e-posters, even though it's not an official moderated session. There's a tremendous amount of intentional respect paid to the abstract writers and presenters at this meeting. And that's not always true at every meeting. I'm not trying to besmirch other meetings, but I've been to them, and you put your poster up, you'd be lucky if one person comes and talks to you. So.
There's also the new patient safety category this year for trainees. That's really cool. I was helped to, what's the word? Not moderate, but do the selection for those abstracts for the trainee patient safety posters. And I learned a lot reading through those. So I'm excited to check some of those out at this meeting.
Every meeting's new. Every meeting has, I think there's a lot of attention paid to the feedback from each of these meetings, because
I read them all. Years of them, years and years of them. As did you.
Yeah, it's part of the process of being, a chair, is that you really have to dig through and see sort of what worked well and what we can improve upon, so I think finding ways to better engage with for example, people submit abstracts that win awards. Instead of it happening in a corner somewhere, we're putting you on the main stage before a major presentation, so you have that opportunity to really feel like you are a meaningful part of the meeting. So this is all an example of ASRA listening to you and hoping to learn from you, and I look forward to reading the pages upon pages of feedback from this meeting, all of which I'm sure will be phenomenal because Becky did such an incredible job.
Beautiful.
Glorious meeting. And that will set no level of expectation for your meeting, of course, right?
Yeah, very low bar.
So I'm going to wrap up with one last thing. Our keynote speaker was Admiral Rachel Levine, Assistant Secretary of HSS, and she HHS. Sorry, studying HSS right here. HHS. I apologize.
Happens all the time.
Yeah.
Usually it's in the reverse.
So I was really struck by one comment she made, which was during the pandemic, the opioid epidemic got worse. And we all thought that might happen. We were all worried about it. Now she's saying it definitively. It's gotten worse. And so if we think those efforts to try to fight this epidemic with creative solutions like more access to buprenorphine, more access to naloxone to reduce the chance of opioid-related deaths, more action on our part to handle the perioperative pain experience better. I think that this speaks to the need for an organization like this to be, again, clinically active, research active, and now a bigger step into advocacy with organizations like HHS and the CDC and other government, CMS and other governmental organizations. And our organization now is really stepping into that as a forefront. Just a last thought. Any other comments before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think ASRA really has been at the forefront of that, and I agree with you. I hope we continue to be. But I was just thinking back to the perioperative medicine symposium that ASRA did in the fall. That was awesome. I learned a ton from that, and I know there's several sessions at this meeting on that topic. And to me, that fits right in with what Dr. Levine was talking about, that we need to do a better job. Even just ASRA's name change to ASRA Pain Medicine, that recognition that it's not just, we can't think in silos. We need to really be thinking about our patients' total arc of care throughout the whole thing and how we can do a better job with that. So I thought her talk was really impactful, really timely, and that was a great session, great discussion afterwards with the questions. Heard some great research ideas coming out of that. So I'm excited to see.
A lot of funding out there for long COVID. If you're looking at it, NIH is please. Yeah, I've been speaking a lot. So.
No, you speak away. I like to hear you talk.
Well, one of the things that I really enjoyed about that session was it did an excellent job of framing this evolution within the opioid epidemic to this overdose crisis that we're seeing, right? Which shifts the blame to a certain extent away from physicians overprescribing opioids, and now it makes it clear that like we get to be a part of the solution instead of the problem, and you can help look at mental health resources, and you can look at ways in which we can sort of identify patients that are high risk for potentially developing substance abuse disorders, and be really a big part of the solution, because we know that we're not handing out opioids like candy anymore, but people are still finding them in some capacity. So I really like how she framed it that way, and really spoke to the audience, and said, we can go out there and help, make a difference in this. And, it is still a huge issue. Yeah. And
Well, I want to thank everybody for watching. I really appreciate it. We're having a fantastic meeting. If you're not here, I wish you could be here. Hopefully you will be here next year. Hollywood, Florida, ASRA Spring 23. If you have any questions, I'm sure I can give you Dr. Haskins' cell phone number, and he'd be happy to answer anything.
maybe Twitter.
Right, something. But definitely hit him up on Twitter, if nothing else.
Yeah.
But we look forward to seeing you next year in Florida. If you haven't been able to come this year, we're so excited that you guys are part of our community. Thank you guys for joining me, and we're going to have a great rest of our meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you guys for coming.
Yeah. I was like, that's right.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. I really wanted to get yours in there because I was afraid that, yeah.